Hello students, this is our 10th program in MBA COL. The subject is project management and today's topic is communication management in projects. Our expert Mr. Saeed Chaudhary is with us. Welcome sir.
Thank you.
Will you please introduce the topic, but before that, let us have a review of the last program.
Here is an overview of the last program.
Human resource management, people management skills, motivation, influence and power, effectiveness, organizational planning, responsibility assignment matrix, staffing management plan, staff acquisition, resource loading and leveling, reward and recognition systems, team development.
And now a brief overview of today's topic, managing project communication plan.
Project communication management, communication planning, information distribution, performance reporting, and administrative closure.
For successful completion of project, a project manager needs to follow up all work and get timely feedback. He also needs to report to the progress to various stakeholders at various times. For this purpose, he must have a very efficient communication system which must be planned at the outset. What other purposes are served by communication system, you can read from the screen.
Objectives of communication planning: setting and getting agreement on goals, coordinating people, discovering and solving problems, and managing expectations.
Now, agreement here means agreement on things to be done, that is the scope. And coordination is taking people together, arranging activities and arranging supplies with vendors and subcontractors and sequencing the activities. Problems that arise during work are to be solved, and expectations mean expectations of the client. But there must be communication plan through which these objectives are achieved.
Let us here ask a question from the project director who is doing practical construction projects. Mr. Tawla, do you think communication plays a significant part in projects?
Communication is the process through which a message is conveyed from the source or sender to the receiver or audience in order to achieve certain desired change in the attitude and other decisions. In project, the communication is the soul of the projects. As we all know that project communication management is one of the 9 knowledge areas of the projects. So for a project manager, it is very important to have effective communication with different levels of the stakeholders. For example, a project manager has to deal with different kinds of stakeholders ranging from the laborers, contractors, his own staff, execution staff, overseers, and engineers, as well as the senior and executive managers. So there is a very high degree of demand from the projects to have effective communication with all tiers of the stakeholders. To have effective project management, the art of communication is indispensable. If we want to see that the desired objectives and goals are achieved in time, we have to have a very strong communication model in the project. I feel that a good communication system in the project avoids delays, cost overruns, and many quality related issues. Therefore, in the projects, we have to deliberate and develop an effective communication model across all the stakeholders so that important decisions are communicated in time and there are no lapses in the decisions and there are no delays in the execution of projects. Project communication, as I have already said, plays like a soul and spirit of the project, and for a good project manager, there is a need to develop an effective project management communication model.
That was Mr. Ataullah Shah, but what is communication plan? Let us proceed. Communication plan. A project communication plan is the written strategy for getting the right information to the right project stakeholders at the right time. Each stakeholder has different requirements for the information as they participate in the project in different ways.
Now, here are three important words: information, timely information, stakeholders and their requirements, and the right information to the right people. Note the words each stakeholder has different requirements. This leads a project manager towards creating different templates or different forms of communication to different people concerned with the project.
Optional format and content. Format and content guidance to be used in preparing primary supporting project management plans. Format and content guidance to be used in preparing and conducting project-related meetings. Format and content guidance to be used in preparing project-related reports. Specification of project knowledge, management tools and capability to be implemented for use on the project. Identification of manager responsibilities and delegations of authority. Listing of primary project stakeholders. Listing of recruiting and special teams, customer and management meetings and conference calls associated with project, including identification of participants. Listing of industry and technical standards.
Now, you might have noted the use of words content and format. This means that the system is to work in formats, in templates, and there must be different formats for different people. As we send short reports to management, we send graphs and histograms to the supervisors, and we send many other forms of graphics to various people and explaining things in detail to the clients, and similar other information formats and contents to various stakeholders and people at interest.
Mr. Ataullah Shah, do you maintain separate communication levels with different stakeholders?
Project communication management is one of the 9 knowledge areas of project management. To me, project communication is the soul of the project because you require to properly communicate with all the stakeholders at different levels during the execution of the project. In the projects, we use different techniques and tools for the communication to make all the project stakeholders on board. For example, within the project team and enter the organization, we use the project memos, and these memos are normally circulated within the organization, and the project team within the organization is communicated the different decisions, the different policy guidelines, and the different important roles and responsibilities. So these project memos are working as two-way communication tools between the project manager and his team. The second and the most important tool in the project management communication is the project letters. The letters may be in the form of notices, it may be in the form of informational letters, or it may be in the form of any ordinary other important communication which is outside the organization. Letters have to be properly drafted, and all the relevant information which is important to be communicated are brought in the letters. The third and the most important part of the project communication is reports. There may be different types of reports, for example, the daily reports, the weekly reports, the monthly reports, quarterly reports, and annual reports. We use these reports both internally and externally. Internally, we use these reports to inform the important senior managers, the executive managers, and outside the organization, we use these reports to inform the sponsors, the Planning Commission, the Higher Education Commission, and other important sponsors which are supposed to be informed about the various decisions and progress of the projects. Besides that, we also have the meetings, which is a two-way communication, face-to-face model, and in which we have a very quick response time. In the meetings, we may have meetings with the staff, our own staff, or maybe meeting with the contractors, maybe meeting with the sponsors, or any other important stakeholder. In my opinion, the meetings are one of the most important tool for the communication of the projects, provided that sufficient preparation is made. Normally, for the meeting, the agenda is decided, and this agenda is circulated to all the members who are supposed to be available at the meeting, and then agenda-wise discussion is carried out, and all the important decisions are recorded, which are normally called the minutes of the meeting. Normally, for every meeting, we make some decisions, and we fix the responsibility and roles of different stakeholders to resolve the problems in the project management.
Thank you, sir. And now we come to the categories of communication. Internal communication within the project team, external communication with upper management, customers, and external players.
Now, the words internal and external are self-explanatory. The circulars or the memoranda and other information pieces that are disseminated in the project are internal communication. Reports are submitted. Information from down below is also conveyed to the upper management, and management's orders are conveyed down below to the workers level. Now, these are all various sorts of internal communications. On the other hand, there are vendors, there are contractors, there are clients and customers, and there are people in the market to whom letters and reports and progress reports have to be sent. So, those are all external communications. And what are the various categories of communication conveyed to various concerned people?
Project information category. Authorizations, any document that represents an agreement. Project plans, budgets, organization chart, responsibility matrix, product specification, etc. Status reports, the best way of reducing executive modeling. Status changes, regular cost and schedule status reports, problems, logs, etc. Coordination, task and responsibilities, relationships between groups, etc. Minutes, memos, letters, newsletters, report, specification and contract documents.
Authorization is like letter of transmittal, that is, who authorized whom. It is an agreed decision. What was the level of delegation? Any scope creep or change statement involved. Status reports are important as they are the status reports of various times, of various stages, and information of the current situation is conveyed to the management and to client particularly. Now, status changes are the changes that are required to be made in the current or the present status, and these include cost schedules and other reports related to problems. Similarly, meetings are held and their minutes are circulated. Memoranda are circulated inside the company, and reports, sometimes weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly in big projects, are prepared and sent to the people concerned. Specifications are very important for deliverables because we have to prepare the unique product or service that is actually the be all and end all of the project according to the specifications given by the client. So, these are to be observed very strictly, and similarly the contract documents are drawn and circulated because a little error may lead to litigation and to conflicts with the client or other parties concerned, particularly the vendors and suppliers and contractors. So, this is essential that the contract documents are prepared very carefully by the legal experts, and this is these are the various categories of information that are conveyed or sent to various concerned people. Of particular interest are status reports. Why status reports are prepared and how timely they are required to be circulated.
Communicating about the status of your project is one of the most important components of project management. It will help you realistically allocate your time and resources to strengthen control over the project and free you up to manage.
Then there are areas status reports should track.
6 areas a status report should track: schedule and scope status, quality of interim final deliverables, risks, new risks or changes in the risks identified earlier, spending versus the planned amounts, staff effort versus the planned time, changes to the plan.
Now, when we talk of status report of schedule and scope, it means quality of interim or final deliverables. Risks may arise at any time if they had not been identified before, and the risks identified must be conveyed to the management, and this also is a very important status report. Spending means what we have actually spent, and it has to be compared with the planned cost. Staff effort means what we have done till today and what was planned to be achieved till today or till the date of the report. Changes to the plan means scope creep, which we have already discussed in detail, but if there are any changes and the change statements have been not circulated before, these must be a part of the status report, and everybody concerned must be taken on board because the changes cost sometimes a lot.
Dr. Taula Shah, what sort of status reports are sent to different parties at interest?
There are different communication tools available in the projects. For example, in our daily reports, we get the information about the material and labor from our site staff in order to understand that what is the level of inputs in terms of material and labor. So these daily reports are sent to the project team, and the project team updates their schedules and timelines. The second and the most important project reports which we normally send to the sponsor are called project monitoring and evaluation reports, and these are given in the form of PC3, PC3A and PC3B. These are the two forms which are used to provide the reports about the monthly and quarterly progress of the projects. In these reports, we normally provide the information about the different items of the project and their progress in terms of physical progress as well as financial progress. And these progress are compared with the targets given in the original plans and PC1 of the projects. So these reports, when submitted to the clients and to the sponsors, are evaluated by them, and if there is any slack or any lag between the planned and actual progress, naturally they would call for some meetings in order to identify the various lags. The fourth most important report which we normally send at the completion of the project is in the form of PC4, which is submitted to the client and the sponsor when the project is completed. The PC4 again gives a complete holistic view of the project in terms of the targets as envisaged in the original plan and as actually achieved. This gives a comparison about the targets and the actual. And similarly, we also try to identify the bottlenecks in the execution of the project. So the PC4 is a very important report which we normally submit to the sponsor at the completion of the projects.
Now, as Dr. Ataullah has explained, various sorts of information is sent to different parties. Obviously, this information is not in a uniform format. There are various ways of presenting information. Let us see what are these ways of presenting information to different people and different parties.
Briefing of internal and external customers. Enlivening presentations, adding a visual dimension to an auditory one, spelling out unfamiliar words by presenting pictures, diagrams, or objects. Remaining in view much longer than oral statements can hang in air.
Now, lively presentations are of interest to everybody. This is human nature. Similarly, adding a visual stimulus to an auditory one reinforces the auditory stimulus and enhances our understanding. Spelling out unfamiliar words, naturally unfamiliar words do not convey meanings per se, and therefore it is necessary that they must be accompanied by a picture or a diagram. Remaining in view much longer than oral statements can hang in air means that the presenter, if he is before the audience, he is a presence, while the voice vanishes immediately after it has been uttered. Further, project manager may use techniques to improve communications.
Techniques to improve communication. Obtaining feedback, establishing face-to-face communications, determining how sensitive the receiver is, being aware of symbolic meaning, communicating at the proper time, reinforcing words with actions, using a simple language, using redundancy, repeating a point in different way.
Obtaining feedback is very necessary for everybody, even for all of us in our lives. In projects, it is all the more necessary that the project manager keeps on getting feedback on the activities going on in the project, so that he can control and watch and monitor the activities, and if need be, he can take remedial action. Establishing face-to-face rapport is also important because people feel important when we talk to them. Determining how sensitive the receiver is, it means that when we are writing a letter to somebody or talking to somebody, we must be conscious of his or her sensitivities. Being aware of symbolic meanings means that sometimes we use symbols, although all language is symbols, but sometimes the words connote something and sometimes they denote something. The denotations are sometimes not liked by other people, so that is also necessary. Then one must have a capability in the language used in communication. Reinforcing words with actions mean that if a person is talking or the project manager is holding a meeting, he also must use gestures and body language. Mostly it is advised that in meetings, even in the written communication, simple language must be used, and mostly people also say that 7 C's of correctness and credibility and conciseness and concreteness and all those qualities of good communication are used. Using redundancy means that sometimes one feels that one is not conveying the point, so it needs to be repeated in a different manner and in a different language, but the point must be through. Still, there are always barriers to communication, and a project manager must be mindful of these.
Barriers to communication. Receiver hearing what he wants to hear, sender and receiver having different perceptions, receiver evaluating the source, receiver ignoring conflicting information, words meaning different things to different people, communicators ignoring non-verbal cues, receiver being emotionally upset.
Now, this is easy to understand because we all use the same language, but sometimes we are preoccupied with certain ideas and we put our own meanings in what we are hearing. So, this means that sometimes the listener listens what he wants to listen. Sender and receivers may be having different perceptions of the same phenomenon, that is the same situation, but the sender is looking at it from a different angle and the receiving at a different angle, and that makes communication difficult. Receiver evaluating the source, which means that receiver is not actually attentive to what is being said, but he is analyzing in his own way who is saying or who is the sender of the communication. Receiver ignoring conflicting information, that is sometimes the information is contrary to what has been sent before, and the two are not collated together so that the conflict area could be identified, and therefore it comes out later. Words meaning different things to different people, these are again the same, that is connotations and denotations, and people deriving different meanings from different words. Communicators ignoring non-verbal cues means the body language or the gestures and facial expressions of the sender or the speaker are not interpreted in a proper way, or they are not in consonance with what is being said. So, that also makes communication difficult. So, it means the communication should not only be timely, but it must be sent to the target user at the time required. And who are the target users?
Target users are project manager, project team, sponsor, functional management, and customers. Dr. Taulasha, do we have to attend to communication specially at the closure of project?
As we all know that the last phase of the project is closing or termination, or sometimes called as phase out. So there are various terminologies which we use for the last phase of the project. The project communication becomes very important in this termination stage because all the stakeholders are required to be informed about the closure of the project. And there must be a proper project communication model and procedure at the closing of the project. Normally, at the closing of the project, it must be ensured that all the deliverables of the projects have been achieved and all the contracts of the project have been properly closed and no contract has been left without any final decision. Now, when we close the projects, there must be a communication strategy, and for mega projects, normally we develop or establish a project termination office which handle the communication requirement about the projects. There must be a proper wide publicity of the project closure through different medium like radio, electronic media, and also in the print media, so that all the stakeholders are informed about the closure of the project. It must be ensured that no financial liability has been left and every kind of financial liability has been settled down so that the litigation at later stage are avoided. Similarly, there must be a lesson learned document through which we try to understand that what were the bottlenecks in the execution of these projects and what lessons we have learned from these bottlenecks and how these bottlenecks can be avoided in the next project. So this document, which is normally called the lesson learned document, is very important communication tool which is passed on to the project planning and execution teams so that they can learn from the bottlenecks and experiences of other project managers. It is very unfortunate that in our society there are no properly documentation of the project closing stage, and normally the projects are closed without proper communication and advertisement, which at later stage lead to many litigations. It is my opinion that the project communication at the closure stage becomes more important so that all the stakeholders are informed about the potential closure of the project, and if there is any liability on the part of the stakeholder like contractors, suppliers, and vendors, they must inform the project team so that these claims are settled in time and there is no problem at later stage.
Now, this is really a very important area to which Dr. Ataullah Shah has pointed out. At the closure of the project, we need to prepare final reports and we need to circulate these for our own education and for the future benefit of the company. Let us have a look at the parts of the final report.
The final report: history, historical recap, project biography, the good, the bad, and the ugly, previous documents, project plan, audits, change orders.
Project report is a very important communication, particularly for the project team and management. What does it tell us and what are the areas of focus in this report? Project performance, administrative performance, human resource problems, organizational structure, project and administrative teams, techniques of project management, successes and failures, and what we earned from this project, that is the earned value.
Before we proceed to the review of today's topic, let us see some of the examples of communication by project manager to the management. Project cost variance exceeds 9.5% for the reporting period. A customer satisfaction issue at the mid-management level has surfaced. An unilateral contract modification was issued by the customer. And a vendor contractor has conveyed a stop work order.
And now the review of today's program.
Communication planning, information distribution, status reports, administrative closure, objectives, users of communication information, operational formats and content, categories of communication, information categories, internal and external communication, techniques to improve communication, barriers to communication, timely information, channels of communication, escalation of management procedures. Let us now close the program with thanks to the expert. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Goodbye to you all. Take care.